Picture this, because I guarantee some version of this has happened to you recently. It's Friday. Around 5:30 p.m., you've officially finished the work week. 40, maybe 45 hours on paper. You're physically in your car, or on a train, or stuck in traffic. But mentally, your brain is completely fried. The idea of cooking dinner feels impossible. Not difficult, impossible. So you open the delivery app. Thai food, pizza, burgers, something comforting, something easy. $45 later, after fees, tips, and taxes, dinner is on the way. You get home, you crack open a beer, or pour a glass of wine. Not because you're celebrating, but because you need to shut your brain off. You collapse on the couch, you binge a show you don't even really like, and you tell yourself the sentence we've all been trained to say, "I earned this. I worked hard all week." But what if I told you you didn't just spend $45? What if I told you that the food, the gas you burned, commuting, the clothes you wore to look professional, and the stress that made you order that food in the first place are all hidden taxes? Taxes that are quietly reducing your salary by more than half. You think you're selling your time for $30 an hour. But after we do the forensic accounting on your life, the math says you might actually be working for $4. My name is Tony, and I spend an unhealthy amount of time thinking about the invisible equations that govern our lives. The ones that keep us running faster just to stay in the same place. If you've ever looked at your paycheck and wondered where it all went, or if you feel like you're working harder than ever, but your savings account looks exactly the same, make sure you subscribe, because today we're not talking about investing. We're not talking about side hustles. We're not talking about grinding harder. We're talking about an accounting fraud, not one committed by your employer, one you're unknowingly committing against yourself. Every single time you accept a job based on the gross salary, because the biggest lie we're sold from the moment we graduate is this, that our value is defined by our annual income, $65,000 a year. That sounds solid. That's about $31 an hour. Respectable, comfortable enough, at least in theory. But in the real world, any business that looks only at revenue and ignores expenses goes bankrupt. If a bakery makes $1 million selling bread, but spends $1 million on rent and flour, that bakery isn't successful. It's dead. And yet, when it comes to our own labor, we only look at the revenue. We completely ignore the cost of selling ourselves. And that cost is far higher than anyone ever admits. So let's do what almost nobody does. Let's stop talking in feelings and start talking in numbers. We're going to run a brutal audit. No optimism, no it'll be fine. Just math. Let's take a very normal example. We'll call him James. James makes $65,000 a year. That's the number everyone focuses on. On paper, that's about $31 an hour. Sounds decent. But before James sees a single dollar of that money, the government takes its cut. Federal tax, state tax, Social Security, Medicare. That $31 immediately turns into something closer to $24. That part isn't shocking. We all expect taxes, but now we get to the part nobody includes, the cost of working. These are expenses James pays for one reason only, to be allowed to keep his job. Let's start with the commute. James doesn't teleport to work. He drives, gas, oil changes, tires, insurance, depreciation. Or maybe he takes the train, monthly pass, parking transfers. Conservatively, this costs him $4,000 a year, and that's being generous. Now add the cost of appearance. James can't show up in pajamas. He needs clothes that say professional shoes, belts, dry cleaning, haircuts. These aren't lifestyle choices, they're uniform costs. Then comes the most dangerous category of all, the convenience tax. Because James is gone all day, he doesn't always have time to cook, so he buys lunch. Not every day, just a couple times a week. $10 here, $15 there. He grabs the $5 coffee because he's exhausted and the meeting is unbearable. He pays a dog walker because he's not home. He pays for little services that only exist because the job takes all his time. Each one feels small. Together, they're massive. And then we get to the darkest line item on the spreadsheet. Decompression, spending. This is the money James spends not to live, but to cope. The Friday night drinks, the impulse purchases, the expensive reset vacation. Not because he's irresponsible, because the job drains him. This is the money spent healing the damage the job causes. When you add all of this up, taxes, commuting, clothes, convenience, coping, James isn't really taking home $65,000. His real usable income might be closer to 35. But here's the twist. We're still not done, because wage is not just money. Wage is money divided by time, and just like we overestimate the money, we massively underestimate the time. HR says James works 40 hours a week. That's a lie. James wakes up early to shower, shave, and get ready. That's unpaid labor. He commutes. That's unpaid labor. Unable to go home, unable to go home, unable to rest. That's captured time. He gets home and spends half an hour mentally decompressing, staring at the wall, venting, scrolling. That time belongs to the job. The job just doesn't pay for it. When you add grooming, commuting, worrying, decompressing, James isn't working 40 hours. He's giving 55, maybe 60. And now we can do the real math. So now that we've destroyed the money side of the equation, it's time to talk about the part everyone conveniently ignores. Time, because your wage isn't just money. It's money divided by time. And just like we overestimate how much money we make, we massively underestimate how much time the job actually takes. HR tells you that you work 40 hours a week. That's adorable. Let's be honest. James doesn't start working at 9 a.m. He starts working the moment his alarm goes off. He wakes up at 6:30, showers, shaves, gets dressed in clothes he only wears for work. That's not personal time, that's unpaid labor. Then there's the commute. 30 minutes each way if he's lucky. More if traffic decides to ruin his life. That's an hour a day where his body and mind belong to the job, but the job doesn't pay him for it. Then there's lunch, technically unpaid. But let's be real, he can't go home. He can't nap, he can't live. He's stuck within a 5-mile radius of his desk, eating something mediocre, scrolling his phone, waiting to go back. That's not free time, that's captivity with snacks. Then he drives home. Another 30 minutes gone. And when he finally walks through the door, does he instantly become a relaxed, present human being? Of course not. He spends 30 minutes decompressing, staring at the wall, complaining about his boss, checking emails just in case, mentally replaying conversations he wishes went differently. This is what I call shadow work. Time that belongs to the job, but never shows up on your paycheck. Add it all up. Morning prep, commute, mental recovery, constant low-grade stress. James isn't working 40 hours a week. He's donating 55, maybe 60. And now comes the moment where the math gets uncomfortable. We take that already shaved down net income, let's say, and we divide it by the real-time commitment, not the HR fantasy, the real number. Almost 3,000 hours a year. When you punch that into a calculator, that $31 an hour evaporates. Suddenly, James isn't making 31. He's making 12, or 10, or 8. And in some high-stress cities, he's mathematically earning less than the teenager flipping burgers down the street, because the teenager walks to work, wears a uniform, leaves the stress at the fryer. James takes his stress home. This is the scam. You've been sold a high-churn low-margin business model where you are the product and you're selling yourself at a loss. Now, I know how this sounds. You're probably thinking, great, so my job pays nothing and my life is a lie. Relax. The point of this math isn't depression, it's leverage, because once you know your real hourly wage, everything changes. So what's the solution here? No, it's not quit your job tomorrow and move into the woods. As tempting as that sounds, around 5:47 p.m. on a Friday, we live in the real world. We have bills, we have responsibilities. The solution is not to make more money. The solution is to stop lying to yourself about what your job is actually paying you. You need a new metric, not salary, not job title, not income. Your real hourly wage. Because once you know that number, everything changes. Let's say you do the math honestly. Taxes, commute, work clothes, convenience food, decompression, spending, all of it. And you realize your real wage is $10 an hour. Now walk into a store, you see a gadget for $80. That price tag is lying to you. That's not $80. That's 8 hours of your life. 8 hours of traffic, 8 hours of emails, 8 hours of pretending to care in meetings. Suddenly, you don't want it anymore. That's not budgeting, that's clarity. This is why the book Your Money or Your Life talks about translating prices into life energy. Because money isn't the real cost. Time is. And here's where the trap gets even darker. We often accept promotions that look like progress, but actually make us poorer. They give you 10,000 more a year. But now you work later. You order takeout every night. You buy nicer clothes. You drive more. You're more stressed, so you spend more to cope. Your income goes up. Your real hourly wage goes down. You're processing more money through your account. But keeping less of it and selling more of your life to get it, that's not success. That's a higher revenue, low margin business, and you are the product. The system relies on you being too tired to do this math. They want you exhausted, distracted, and proud of a number that doesn't mean anything. I make good money, you say. As you sign a lease, you can't escape and finance a car you need just to survive the commute. You need the job to pay for the things you bought to tolerate the job. That's the trap. So here's the shift. You start treating your life like a business. A smart business doesn't just chase revenue, it protects margin. Your margin is the time and money you have left over to actually be human. If you make $100,000 a year, but spend 95,080 hours a week to earn it, you're not successful. You're a failing company waiting to collapse. But if you make $50,000, spend $20,000, and work 30 hours a week, you're incredibly profitable. You're winning this weekend, not when you're fried on Friday, but when you're fresh on Sunday. Run the numbers. Be brutally honest. Write your real hourly wage on a sticky note. Put it on your credit card. The next time you're about to buy something stupid, ask yourself, am I willing to trade 4 hours of my life for this? That friction will save you more money than any budgeting app ever will. Time is becoming the real currency. The wealthy are buying time. Everyone else is selling it at a discount. Don't sell your time cheap, audit your life. Cut the vampire costs tied to your job. Create a gap between what you earn and what you spend, because that gap, that's where freedom lives. If this video made you rethink your paycheck, share it with a coworker who looks tired. We're all stuck in the same system. But once you see the math, you can finally start working your way out of the trap.